The sky above Earth was no longer blue. It had been replaced by a dark, ominous haze, the kind that made people feel small and powerless. The alien fleet hung there like a storm that refused to pass, its massive ships blotting out the sun and casting long shadows over the broken cities below. For weeks, humanity had tried to fight back, but every attempt ended in failure. The aliens were too strong, too advanced, and too merciless. Now most of the world had given up hope, but not everyone. In the ruins of what was once New York City, a group of survivors clung to life. They lived in the remains of an old skyscraper, its walls cracked and covered in soot. Inside, they had built a shaky shelter using whatever materials they could find, broken furniture, scraps of metal, and torn pieces of fabric. It wasn't much, but it kept them alive. Among these survivors was Jack Miller, a man with broad shoulders and tired eyes. He used to be a Marine, but now he was just another person trying to survive. Still, something about him stood out. Maybe it was the way he carried himself, or maybe it was the fire that still burned in his chest when so many others had let theirs die. Jack stood on the rooftop of the building, staring up at the alien mothership. It floated high above the city, glowing faintly in the dim light. It looked like a giant spider, its legs stretching out in all directions, ready to crush anything beneath it. His hands were clenched into fists, his knuckles white from the pressure. He hated feeling helpless. He hated standing there while those things ruled the skies, but more than anything, he hated the thought of giving up. Behind him, the door creaked open. Emily Dawson stepped out onto the roof, her arms wrapped around a battered tablet. She was younger than Jack, with short brown hair and glasses that she constantly pushed up her nose. Before the invasion, she had worked as an engineer for NASA, designing propulsion systems for rockets. Now she spent her days trying to figure out how to use old technology to fight back against the aliens. She wasn't a fighter like Jack, but she had her own kind of strength. "Jack," she said softly, holding out the tablet. Her voice broke, through his thoughts, pulling him back to reality. "I think you should see this." Jack turned and walked over to her. He took the tablet and glanced at the screen. It showed fragments of intercepted alien communications, lines of strange symbols and numbers that didn't make sense to him, but Emily pointed to one section highlighted in yellow. "They're waiting," she explained. "Their main force isn't here yet. They're stalling until reinforcements arrive." Jack frowned. "How long do we have?" Emily hesitated. "Days, maybe a week. I can't be sure." Jack nodded slowly. A week wasn't much time, but it was something. If they could hold out until then, maybe there was still a chance. Maybe someone would come. "We need to send a signal," he said suddenly. "A distress call. Something loud enough to reach anyone who might hear us." Emily's eyes widened. "You mean contact other civilizations? We don't even know if they exist." "It doesn't matter," Jack replied firmly. "We've got nothing left to lose. If we sit here and wait for those things to finish us off, we're already dead. But if we try, if we put everything we've got into one last shot, maybe, just maybe, someone will answer." Emily stared at him for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll see what I can do." Over the next few days, Emily threw herself into the task. She scavenged parts from abandoned buildings and dug through piles of rubble to find anything useful. With help from Sarah Bennett, a sharpshooter with steady hands and a quick mind, she managed to piece together a makeshift transmitter. It wasn't pretty. Wires stuck out at odd angles and the whole thing looked like it might fall apart at any second. But it worked. At least it worked well enough to send a weak pulse into space. Meanwhile, Jack gathered volunteers to protect the transmitter. He knew the aliens wouldn't let them broadcast without a fight. Alongside Sarah, he recruited Ryan Carter, a mechanic with grease-stained fingers and a knack for fixing things. Ryan wasn't much of a fighter, but he was smart and resourceful, two qualities that Jack valued highly. On the morning they planned to activate the transmitter, the group met on the rooftop. Emily adjusted the settings on the device, her brow furrowed in concentration. Jack stood nearby, scanning the horizon for signs of trouble. The air felt heavy, charged with tension. Ready? Jack asked. Emily nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. She pressed a button, and the transmitter hummed to life. A faint light blinked on its surface, signaling that the signal was being sent. Jack exhaled slowly, feeling a mix of relief and dread. Relief because they had done it. They had sent their plea for help into the vastness of space. Dread because now they had to wait, and waiting meant staying alive long enough to see if anyone answered. It didn't take long for the aliens to notice. Less than an hour after activating the transmitter, drones appeared in the sky. They swooped down toward the building, firing energy beams that tore chunks out of the concrete. Jack shouted orders, directing his team to take cover. Sarah positioned herself near a window, her rifle aimed at the incoming threat. Ryan stayed close to the transmitter, ready to repair it if anything went wrong. The battle raged for hours. Explosions echoed through the streets, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Through it all, Emily remained focused, monitoring the transmitter and ensuring the signal stayed active. Jack moved between his teammates, checking on them and offering encouragement. "You okay?" he asked Sarah during a brief lull in the fighting. She nodded, reloading her rifle. "I'm fine, just keep those things off me and I'll handle the rest." Jack smiled grimly. That's the plan. Despite the chaos, they managed to hold their ground. The transmitter continued broadcasting, sending its desperate message into the void. But as the hours dragged on, fatigue began to set in. Jack could see it in the way his team moved. Slower, heavier, less confident. They couldn't keep this up forever. Late in the afternoon, Ryan called out from his position near the transmitter. "Jack, we've got a problem." Jack hurried over, his heart sinking. The device was sparking, its wires frayed and smoking. Ryan was already working on it, his hands moving quickly despite the danger. "I can fix it," Ryan said, though his voice wavered. "But I need a minute." Jack glanced up at the sky. More drones were approaching, their weapons glowing ominously. "You've got 30 seconds, he said. Then he turned to Sarah. "Cover him." Sarah nodded and opened fire, her shots precise and deadly. One drone exploded, then another, but there were too many of them. Jack joined the fight, firing, his own weapon and shouting warnings to his team. Finally, Ryan gave a triumphant shout. "Got it." The transmitter came back online, its blinking light steady once more. Jack allowed himself a brief moment of relief before turning his attention back to the battle. They weren't safe yet, not by a long shot. But for now, the Y signal was still alive. And as long as it was, there was hope. That night, as the group huddled together inside their makeshift shelter, exhaustion finally caught up with them. Emily leaned against the wall, her head resting on her knees. Ryan sat cross-legged on the floor, cleaning his tools. Sarah kept watch by the window, her rifle resting across her lap. Jack stood near the entrance, staring out at the ruined city. "We did good today," he said quietly, breaking the silence. "Real good." No one responded immediately. Then Sarah spoke up. "Do you really think someone will hear us?" Jack hesitated. He wanted to say yes, to reassure her that their efforts weren't in vain. But the truth was, he didn't know. All he had was faith, a stubborn belief that giving up wasn't an option. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I do know this. If we stop fighting, we're done. As long as we keep trying, there's a chance, and that's worth everything." The others nodded, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside, the alien ships loomed overhead, silent and menacing. The odds were against them, and the road ahead would be brutal. But for now, they had taken the first step, and sometimes that was enough. The days that followed were a blur of tension and exhaustion. The transmitter continued to send its faint signal into space, but the constant attacks from the aliens made it hard for the group to rest. Every hour felt like a lifetime, and every drone that approached brought new waves of fear. Jack knew they couldn't keep this up forever. Their supplies were running low, their bodies were wearing down, and the weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on all of them. Emily was the first to show signs of cracking. She spent most of her time monitoring the transmitter, adjusting its settings and making sure it stayed active. But as the days passed, she grew quieter, her movements slower. One evening, while the others were eating what little food they had left, Jack noticed her staring at the device with a distant look in her eyes. "You holding up okay?" he asked, sitting beside her. She nodded but didn't meet his gaze. I don't know if it's working," she admitted. "What if no one hears us? What if we're wasting our time?" Jack placed a hand on her shoulder. "We've got no choice but to believe it's working. If we stop now, we're done. And I'm not ready to give up." Emily sighed but didn't argue. Deep down, she wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. She wasn't used to failure. Her work at NASA had always been about precision and results. This was different. This was a gamble, a desperate shot in the dark. Still, she forced herself to focus. Giving up wasn't an option. Sarah and Ryan were feeling the strain too. Sarah's sharpshooting skills had saved them more times than anyone could count. But even she was starting to slow down. Her aim remained steady, but her reactions weren't as quick as they used to be. Ryan, meanwhile, was struggling to keep the equipment running. The transmitter was old and fragile, and every repair job took longer than the last. He spent hours tinkering with wires and circuits, muttering under his breath as he worked. One afternoon, while Ryan was fixing a damaged power supply, Sarah walked over and handed him a bottle of water. "You need to take a break," she said, firmly. "You're going to burn yourself out." Ryan shook his head. "Can't. If I stop, the transmitter might go down. We can't afford that." "I get it," Sarah replied, "but you're no good to us if you collapse. Trust me, I've seen it happen before." Reluctantly, Ryan set his tools aside and took a sip of water. As he rested, Sarah glanced around the room. The others were scattered throughout the shelter, each lost in their own thoughts. It struck her how much they had changed since the invasion began. They weren't soldiers or heroes. They were ordinary people who had been thrust into an extraordinary situation. And yet, here they were, fighting against impossible odds. Despite their struggles, the group managed to hold their ground. Each attack brought new challenges, but they adapted quickly. Jack led the way, his leadership keeping everyone focused. He assigned tasks based on each person's strengths. Sarah handled defense, Ryan maintained the equipment, and Emily monitored the transmitter. Even when things seemed hopeless, Jack's determination inspired them to keep going. But morale was slipping. The constant fighting and lack of sleep were taking their toll. One night, after repelling another wave of drones, Sarah voiced what everyone else was thinking. "How long can we keep this up?" she asked during a rare moment of calm. "We're outnumbered, outgunned, and running out of supplies. Sooner or later, we're going to run out of luck." Jack didn't answer right away. He stared out the window at the alien ships hovering above the city. Their glowing lights pulsed rhythmically, almost tauntingly. Finally, he turned back to the group. "We don't have a choice," he said. "If we quit now, everything we've done will be for nothing. We've got to hold on no matter how hard it gets." His words didn't erase the doubts in their minds, but they reminded everyone why they were fighting. For Earth, for the people who had already been lost, for the slim chance that someone somewhere would hear their call for help. Weeks dragged on, and the group settled into a grim routine. Days blurred together as they fought off one attack after another. Food became scarce, forcing them to ration what little they had. Sleep was a luxury none of them could afford. Yet, through it all, the transmitter kept sending its signal into space. Then, one morning, something unexpected happened. Emily was checking the transmitter's readings when she froze. Her eyes widened as she stared at the screen. "Guys," she called out, her voice trembling with excitement. "There's something coming." Jack rushed over, followed by Sarah and Ryan. "What is it?" he asked urgently. Emily pointed to the screen. A faint blip appeared on the radar, moving steadily toward Earth. "It's a ship," she explained. "Not one of theirs. It's different. It's answering our signal." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Ryan let out a shaky laugh. Are you serious? Someone actually heard us? It looks that way, Emily replied, though her tone was cautious. But we won't know for sure until it gets closer. Jack straightened up, his expression firm. Whatever happens next, we stay ready. Don't let your guard down. As the hours passed, the blip grew larger on the radar. Soon, a sleek silver ship descended through the atmosphere, its design unlike anything they had ever seen. It hovered above the city, casting a soft glow over the ruins. A message crackled through their comms, startling everyone. This is Captain Ilara Voss of the Interstellar Coalition Fleet. Your signal reached us. Stand by. The group exchanged stunned looks. Had they really done it? Had their desperate gamble paid off? Jack stepped forward, speaking into the comms. This is Jack Miller. Thank you for responding. We need help. We're under attack. There was a pause before Ilara's voice came back. Understood. Prepare to receive reinforcements. The arrival of the Coalition fleet changed everything. Ships descended from the sky, surrounding the alien mothership and cutting off its escape routes. Laser beams streaked across the horizon as battles erupted between the two forces. For the first time in weeks, the survivors felt a glimmer of hope. Captain Voss's forces landed near the group's shelter, bringing advanced weapons and technology far beyond what humanity possessed. Ilara herself stepped out of her ship, her presence commanding respect. She wore a uniform adorned with insignias marking her rank, and her piercing blue eyes scanned the scene with authority. You've done well to survive this long, she said to Jack. But the fight isn't over. Yet Jack nodded. What's the plan? Ilara gestured to a holographic map projected from her wrist device. We'll hit their shield generator. Without it, their defenses will collapse. Once that happens, we can drive them out. Jack looked at his team. They were exhausted, battered, and barely standing, but their eyes burned with determination. We're with you, he said. Preparations began immediately. Ilara's troops fortified the area around the shelter, setting up defenses to protect the transmitter. Meanwhile, Jack and his team prepared for the assault on the shield generator. It would be a risky mission, requiring them to infiltrate the heart of the alien stronghold, but they didn't hesitate. This was their chance to turn the tide. As they geared up, Emily approached Jack. Be careful, she said softly. We've come too far to lose now. Jack gave her a reassuring smile. We'll make it through. Just keep that transmitter running, okay? Emily nodded, though worry lingered in her eyes. She watched as Jack, Sarah, and Ryan joined Ilara's forces, their figures disappearing into the chaos of battle. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to feel a flicker of optimism. Maybe, just maybe, they had a chance after all. The final push was brutal. Explosions rocked the ground as coalition forces clashed with the aliens. Jack led his team through the wreckage of the city, dodging enemy fire and navigating treacherous terrain. Every step brought them closer to the shield generator and closer to victory. When they finally reached the target, Ryan set to work rigging explosives while Jack and Sarah provided cover. The sound of gunfire filled the air, drowning out all other noise. As Ryan finished his task, he shouted, "Detonators ready, get clear." Jack hesitated, glancing at the timer counting down. There was no time to retreat. He made a split-second decision. Go, he ordered. I'll stay and make sure it goes off. Sarah protested, but Jack cut her off. Just go. Tell Emily I'm sorry. With tears in her eyes, Sarah obeyed, dragging Ryan away as the countdown reached its final seconds. The explosion lit up the night sky, shaking the ground beneath their feet. When the dust settled, the alien shield was gone. From a distance, Emily watched the fiery blast, her heart sinking. She didn't need to be told what had happened, but as she turned back to the transmitter, she vowed to honor Jack's sacrifice. Whatever the cost, they would win, for him, for Earth, and for the future. The destruction of the shield generator was a turning point. Without their protective barrier, the alien fleet became vulnerable. Captain Ilara Voss wasted no time capitalizing on the advantage. Her forces launched a coordinated assault, targeting key points across the alien stronghold. The Coalition's advanced weapons and tactics overwhelmed the invaders, who had grown complacent behind their impenetrable defenses. For Emily Dawson, the aftermath of the explosion brought a mix of emotions. Relief washed over her as she watched the alien ships retreat under the relentless barrage of Coalition firepower. But it was quickly followed by grief when Sarah and Ryan returned, their faces pale and drawn. They didn't need to say anything, Emily already knew. Jack was gone. He saved us, Sarah said quietly, her voice trembling. He stayed behind to make sure the bomb went off. Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to scream, to cry out at the unfairness of it all, but instead, she clenched her fists and swallowed her pain. Jack had given everything for this fight, and now it was up to them to finish what he started. For his sake and for everyone else who had sacrificed so much, they couldn't afford to falter now. As the battle raged on, Emily found herself working closely with Captain Voss. The two women shared a mutual respect, forged in the heat of war. Ilara admired Emily's ingenuity and determination, while Emily was inspired by Ilara's calm leadership and unwavering resolve. Together, they coordinated efforts from the makeshift command center, using the transmitter to relay vital information to the Coalition fleet. "Your people are stronger than I expected," Ilara remarked one evening as they pored over maps and data. "Not many civilizations could withstand an invasion like this." Emily shook her head. "We're not strong. We're just stubborn. We don't give up, even when it seems hopeless." Ilara smiled faintly. "Stubbornness can be a kind of strength. You've proven that." Despite the progress they were making, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest part was yet to come. The aliens weren't retreating completely. They were regrouping, preparing for one last stand. And when they struck back, it would be with everything they had. Sarah and Ryan threw themselves into the fight, determined to honor Jack's memory. Sarah's sharpshooting skills became legendary among the Coalition troops, earning her nicknames like the Ghost and Bullet Whisperer. Her aim was flawless, taking down enemy drones and soldiers with precision that left even seasoned warriors in awe. Ryan, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to keep their equipment running. He patched up damaged weapons, repaired broken communication devices, and rigged together makeshift solutions whenever supplies ran low. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. They leaned on each other, sharing stories about Jack and the life they hoped to build once the war was over. It wasn't much, just fragments of hope, but it kept them going. One night, after a particularly brutal skirmish, Sarah sat beside Ryan on the rooftop of the shelter. The city below was eerily quiet, the streets littered with debris and smoke. Above them, the stars twinkled faintly through gaps in the haze. "You ever think about what happens next?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence. Ryan shrugged. "If we win, yeah, sometimes. I mean, Earth's gonna need a lot of fixing. Maybe I'll open a repair shop or something." Sarah chuckled softly. "A repair shop, that's your dream?" "It's practical," Ryan replied with a grin. "Besides, someone's got to fix all the stuff you break." Sarah playfully nudged him. "I don't break things, I make them better." They laughed, the sound cutting through the tension that had built up over weeks of fighting. For a brief moment, they allowed themselves to imagine a future beyond the war, a world where they could live without fear, where they could rebuild and start anew. But the moment passed quickly. The reality of their situation came crashing back, as another wave of alien reinforcements appeared on the horizon. The battle wasn't over yet, and neither of them could afford to let their guard down. Captain Voss led her forces with unmatched skill, her strategies shifting seamlessly as the tide of the war turned. She divided her troops into smaller units, each tasked with specific objectives. Some focused on disabling alien supply lines, while others targeted key installations. The goal was simple: weaken the invaders until they had no choice but to surrender. Jack's team, now led by Sarah and Ryan, was assigned to a critical mission. They were to infiltrate an alien outpost located deep within the ruins of Manhattan. Intelligence suggested that the outpost housed important communications equipment, which the aliens were using to coordinate their remaining forces. If they could destroy it, the coalition would gain a significant advantage. The mission was dangerous, requiring them to navigate heavily guarded territory. Sarah and Ryan prepared carefully, gathering weapons and supplies. Emily joined them before they left, handing over a small device she had modified. "This will jam their sensors," she explained. "It won't last long, but it should give you enough time to get inside." Sarah took the device and nodded. "Thanks, Emily. Stay safe." "You too," Emily replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Come back alive." With those words echoing in their minds, Sarah and Ryan set off into the darkness. The journey was treacherous, every step fraught with danger. Alien patrols roamed the streets, their glowing eyes scanning for intruders. Shadows danced across crumbling buildings, creating an eerie maze of light and darkness. At one point, Ryan froze, grabbing Sarah's arm. Ahead of them, a group of alien soldiers stood guard outside the outpost entrance. Their weapons glinted menacingly in the dim light. "We'll never get past them," Ryan whispered. Sarah studied the scene, her mind racing. Then she spotted a narrow alleyway leading to a side entrance. "Follow me," she murmured. They crept silently through the shadows, avoiding detection. When they reached the side door, Ryan pulled out his tools and began picking the lock. His hands moved quickly, despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Within moments, the door clicked open. Inside, the outpost was a labyrinth of corridors and rooms. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, casting an otherworldly light. Sarah and Ryan moved cautiously, sticking to the edges of the hallways. Every sound made them flinch. Every shadow seemed to move. Finally, they reached the communications hub. Rows of alien consoles lined the room, humming with energy. Ryan set to work planting explosives, his movements precise and efficient. As he worked, Sarah kept watch, her rifle trained on the doorway. "How much longer?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Almost done," Ryan replied, sweat dripping from his brow. "Just a few more seconds." Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed in the corridor. Sarah spun around, raising her weapon. A squad of alien soldiers burst into the room, their weapons raised. "Go!" Sarah shouted, opening fire. Ryan hesitated for a split second, then pressed the detonator. The room erupted in flames as the explosives went off, sending shockwaves rippling through the building. Sarah grabbed Ryan's arm and dragged him toward the exit, firing blindly behind them as they ran. They emerged into the night air just as the outpost collapsed in a fiery inferno. Exhausted and battered, they leaned against a nearby wall, catching their breath. "We did it," Ryan gasped. "The comms are down." Sarah nodded, though her expression remained grim. "Yeah, but we're not done yet." Back at the shelter, Emily watched the distant explosion with a mixture of relief and dread. Each victory brought them closer to winning the war, but the cost was mounting. Lives had been lost, homes destroyed, and scars etched into the hearts of those who remained. Yet, amidst the devastation, there was hope. Humanity had shown its resilience, its refusal to bow to despair. With Captain Voss's help, they had fought, back against impossible odds. And though the road ahead would be long and difficult, they had taken the first steps toward reclaiming their planet. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Emily allowed herself a small smile. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time in weeks she believed they might actually win. The alien fleet was crumbling, its forces scattered and disorganized. Without their shield generator or communication hubs, the invaders struggled to mount a cohesive defense. Captain Alara Voss seized the opportunity, pushing her coalition forces to press harder than ever before. The tide of the war had shifted, and now it was humanity's turn to take the fight to the enemy. Emily Dawson stood on the rooftop of the shelter, watching the battle unfold below. The city was alive with flashes of light as coalition ships exchanged fire with the remaining alien vessels. Explosions lit up the night sky, shaking the ground beneath her feet. Despite the chaos, there was a sense of purpose in the air, a feeling that victory might finally be within reach. But Emily knew better than to let her guard down. She had seen too much loss, too much pain, to believe that the war was over just yet. The aliens were cornered, yes, but they were still dangerous. Desperation could make even the weakest opponent unpredictable. Sarah Bennett and Ryan Carter returned to the shelter later that evening, their faces streaked with soot and exhaustion. They had barely escaped the collapsing outpost, narrowly avoiding capture by the alien patrol. Though they were physically drained, their spirits remained high. Destroying the communications hub had dealt a significant blow to the enemy, and they took pride in knowing their mission had succeeded. "How are you holding up?" Emily asked as she handed them bottles of water. Sarah shrugged. "We're alive. That's all that matters." Ryan nodded in agreement. "Yeah, but we can't stop now. Not when we're this close." Emily looked at them, her heart swelling with admiration. These two, along with Jack before them, had become symbols of resilience. They had faced unimaginable odds and refused to give up. And though Jack was gone, his spirit lived on in every step they took toward freedom. Captain Voss called a meeting later that night to discuss the next phase of the operation. The Coalition had identified the Alien Command Center, a massive structure, nestled deep within the ruins of Central Park. It served as the nerve center for the entire invasion force, coordinating attacks and maintaining control over their dwindling resources. If they could destroy it, the alien fleet would fall into complete disarray. "It won't be easy," Alara warned as she displayed a holographic map of the area. "The command center is heavily fortified with multiple layers of defenses. We'll need to hit it hard and fast if we want to succeed." Jack's team, now led by Sarah, was assigned to assist in the assault. Their familiarity with urban combat made them invaluable assets, capable of navigating the treacherous terrain and striking where the enemy least expected it. Emily, meanwhile, would stay behind to monitor the transmitter and provide real-time updates to the Coalition forces. "This is it," Alara said, her voice firm. "One final push. Let's make sure it counts." The attack began at dawn. Coalition ships descended from the sky, raining fire upon the alien stronghold. Lasers streaked across the horizon, illuminating the battlefield in bursts of blinding light. On the ground, troops advanced cautiously, clearing out pockets of resistance as they moved closer to the command center. Sarah and Ryan fought side by side, their movements synchronized after weeks of working together. Sarah's sharpshooting skills continued to impress, taking down enemy soldiers with precision that left even seasoned warriors in awe. Ryan, meanwhile, used his mechanical expertise to disable alien turrets and traps, ensuring safe passage for the Coalition forces. As they approached the command center, the intensity of the fighting increased. Alien reinforcements poured in from all directions, forcing the Coalition troops to dig in and hold their ground. Sarah and Ryan found themselves pinned down behind a pile of rubble, exchanging fire with a group of heavily armed soldiers. "We can't stay here," Ryan shouted, over the din of explosions. "I know," Sarah replied, reloading her rifle. "Cover me!" She darted out from behind the rubble, firing rapidly to keep the enemy at bay. Ryan followed close behind, tossing grenades to clear a path forward. Together they reached the entrance to the command center, where a squad of Coalition soldiers awaited their arrival. "Good work," one of the soldiers said, nodding in approval. "Now let's finish this." Inside the command center, the air was thick with tension. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, casting an eerie light over the corridors. The hum of alien machinery filled the space, punctuated by the occasional burst of gunfire. Sarah and Ryan moved carefully, sticking to the shadows as they navigated the labyrinthine structure. Their objective was clear: reach the central control room and plant explosives. Once detonated, the blast would cripple the command center and bring the alien operation to a grinding halt. But getting there wouldn't be easy. The aliens had anticipated such an attack and stationed their best soldiers to defend the area. At one point, Ryan froze, grabbing Sarah's arm. Ahead of them, a group of alien elites stood guard outside the control room. Their armor gleamed menacingly in the dim light, and their weapons were trained on the doorway. "There's no way we're getting past them," Ryan whispered. Sarah studied the scene, her mind racing. Then she spotted a ventilation shaft running along the ceiling. Up there, she murmured, pointing to the opening. We can crawl through and drop in behind them. Ryan hesitated but nodded. Using makeshift tools, they pried open the vent and climbed inside. The narrow passage was cramped and uncomfortable, but it offered a chance to bypass the guards undetected. As they crawled forward, the sound of alien voices grew louder below them. Finally, they reached a spot directly above the control room. Sarah signaled for Ryan to wait, then carefully removed the grate covering the vent. Peering down, she saw the central console, a pulsating mass of wires and circuits surrounded by alien technicians. "Ready?" she whispered. Ryan nodded, handing her a small explosive charge. "Be careful." Sarah dropped silently into the room, landing lightly on her feet. Before the technicians could react, she fired her weapon, eliminating them with swift efficiency. Ryan followed moments later, carrying additional charges to ensure maximum damage. They worked quickly, planting explosives at key points throughout the room. The hum of machinery grew louder as the charges synchronized, counting down to detonation. When the timer reached 10 seconds, Sarah grabbed Ryan's arm and pulled him toward the exit. "Move," she shouted. They sprinted down the corridor, dodging blasts of energy as alarms blared overhead. Behind them, the control room erupted in flames, sending shockwaves rippling through the building. Sarah and Ryan barely made it outside before the entire structure collapsed in a fiery inferno. Back at the shelter, Emily watched the explosion with a mixture of relief and sorrow. Each victory brought them closer to reclaiming Earth, but the cost weighed heavily on her heart. Lives had been lost, friendships forged and shattered, and scars etched into the souls of those who remained. Yet, amidst the devastation, hope flickered like a candle in the darkness. Humanity had shown its resilience, its refusal to surrender, even when faced with overwhelming odds. With Captain Voss's help, they had fought back against an enemy that once seemed invincible. As the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Emily allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The battle wasn't over, not yet, but for the first time in weeks she believed they might actually win. The destruction of the alien command center marked a turning point in the war. Without their central hub to coordinate attacks, the invaders were thrown into chaos, their remaining forces scattered, retreating to isolated pockets across the city. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had the upper hand. Captain Alara Voss wasted no time capitalizing on the advantage. She ordered her coalition forces to sweep through the ruins, rooting out any surviving aliens and securing key locations. The streets buzzed with activity as soldiers moved from building to building, clearing debris and searching for hidden threats. It was a slow and grueling process, but everyone knew it had to be done. Emily Dawson stayed behind at the shelter, monitoring transmissions and coordinating efforts between the coalition troops. Her role was quieter than those on the front lines, but no less important. Every piece of information she relayed could mean the difference between life and death for someone out there. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that lingered in her chest. Jack's sacrifice haunted her thoughts, a constant reminder of the cost of this victory. Sarah Bennett and Ryan Carter returned to the shelter late one evening, their faces streaked with dirt and exhaustion. They had spent hours combing through the wreckage of the city, hunting down remnants of the alien forces. Though they were physically drained, their spirits remained high. Each mission brought them closer to reclaiming Earth, and they refused to let fatigue stand in their way. "How are you holding up?" Emily asked as she handed them bottles of water. Ryan shrugged. "We're okay, just tired." Sarah nodded in agreement. "Yeah, but we can't stop now, not when we're so close." Emily looked at them, her heart swelling with pride. These two, along with Jack before them, had become symbols of resilience. They had faced unimaginable odds and refused to give up, and though Jack was gone, his spirit lived on in every step they took toward freedom. As the days passed, the coalition forces tightened their grip on the city. Alien resistance dwindled, reduced to sporadic skirmishes rather than organized attacks. Captain Voss called another meeting to discuss the final phase of the operation. Intelligence suggested that the alien reinforcements, the ones humanity had feared for weeks, were still en route to Earth. If they arrived, the battle would flare up again, potentially undoing all the progress made so far. We need to finish this before they get here, Alara said firmly, her piercing blue eyes scanning the room. Our scouts have identified their last stronghold, a massive ship docked near the coast. If we destroy it, we cut off their ability to regroup or call for backup. She displayed a holographic map of the area, highlighting the location of the alien vessel. It loomed over the ocean like a dark shadow, its size dwarfing everything around it. Destroying it wouldn't be easy. It was heavily fortified with multiple layers of defenses designed to repel even the most determined attackers. This will be our biggest challenge yet, Alara continued. But if we succeed, we end this war once and for all. Jack's team, now led by Sarah, was assigned to assist in the assault. Their familiarity with urban combat and quick thinking made them invaluable assets. Emily, meanwhile, would stay behind to monitor communications and provide real-time updates to the coalition forces. You've done incredible work so far, Alara told them. Let's make sure we see this through to the end. The attack began at dawn. Coalition ships descended from the sky, raining fire upon the alien stronghold. Lasers streaked across the horizon, illuminating the battlefield in bursts of blinding light. On the ground, troops advanced cautiously, clearing out pockets of resistance as they moved closer to the massive ship. Sarah and Ryan fought side by side, their movements synchronized after weeks of working together. Sarah's sharpshooting skills continued to impress, taking down enemy soldiers with precision that left even seasoned warriors in awe. Ryan, meanwhile, used his mechanical expertise to disable alien turrets and traps, ensuring safe passage for the coalition forces. As they approached the ship, the intensity of the fighting increased. Alien reinforcements poured in from all directions, forcing the coalition troops to dig in and hold their ground. Sarah and Ryan found themselves pinned down behind a pile of rubble, exchanging fire with a group of heavily armed soldiers. "We can't stay here," Ryan shouted over the din of explosions. "I know," Sarah replied, reloading her rifle. "Cover me." She darted out from behind the rubble, firing rapidly to keep the enemy at bay. Ryan followed close behind, tossing grenades to clear a path forward. Together, they reached the entrance to the ship, where a squad of coalition soldiers awaited their arrival. "Good work," one of the soldiers said, nodding in approval. "Now let's finish this." Inside the alien ship, the air was thick with tension. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, casting an eerie light over the corridors. The hum of alien machinery filled the space, punctuated by the occasional burst of gunfire. Sarah and Ryan moved carefully, sticking to the shadows as they navigated the labyrinthine structure. Their objective was clear: reach the engine core and plant explosives. Once detonated, the blast would cripple the ship and bring the alien operation to a grinding halt. But getting there wouldn't be easy. The aliens had anticipated such an attack and stationed their best soldiers to defend the area. At one point, Ryan froze, grabbing Sarah's arm. Ahead of them, a group of alien elites stood guard outside the engine room. Their armor gleamed menacingly in the dim light, and their weapons were trained on the doorway. "There's no way we're getting past them," Ryan whispered. Sarah studied the scene, her mind racing. Then she spotted a ventilation shaft running along the ceiling. "Up there," she murmured, pointing to the opening. "We can crawl through and drop in behind them." Ryan hesitated but nodded. Using makeshift tools, they pried open the vent and climbed inside. The narrow passage was cramped and uncomfortable, but it offered a chance to bypass the guards undetected. As they crawled forward, the sound of alien voices grew louder below them. Finally, they reached a spot directly above the engine room. Sarah signaled for Ryan to wait, then carefully removed the grate covering the vent. Peering down, she saw the central console, a pulsating mass of wires and circuits surrounded by alien technicians. "Ready?" she whispered. Ryan nodded, handing her a small explosive charge. "Be careful." Sarah dropped silently into the room, landing lightly on her feet. Before the technicians could react, she fired her weapon, eliminating them with swift efficiency. Ryan followed moments later, carrying additional charges to ensure maximum damage. They worked quickly, planting explosives at key points throughout the room. The hum of machinery grew louder as the charges synchronized, counting down to detonation. When the timer reached 10 seconds, Sarah grabbed Ryan's arm and pulled him toward the exit. "Move," she shouted. They sprinted down the corridor, dodging blasts of energy as alarms blared overhead. Behind them, the engine room erupted in flames, sending shockwaves rippling through the ship. Sarah and Ryan barely made it outside before the entire structure collapsed in a fiery inferno. Back at the shelter, Emily watched the explosion with a mixture of relief and sorrow. Each victory brought them closer to reclaiming Earth, but the cost weighed heavily on her heart. Lives had been lost, friendships forged and shattered, and scars etched into the souls of those who remained. Yet, amidst the devastation, hope flickered like a candle in the darkness. Humanity had shown its resilience, its refusal to surrender, even when faced with overwhelming odds. With Captain Voss's help, they had fought back against an enemy that once seemed invincible. As the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Emily allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The battle wasn't over, not yet, but for the first time in weeks she believed they might actually win. The explosion of the alien ship sent a shockwave through the air, shaking the ground beneath everyone's feet. Flames rose high into the sky, lighting up the coastline like a second sunrise. The massive vessel groaned and buckled under the force of the blast before collapsing into the ocean with an earth-shattering roar. For a moment, there was silence, a stunned pause as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then cheers erupted from the coalition forces on the shore. Soldiers hugged each other, their faces streaked with dirt and tears of relief. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had won. The alien threat was gone, or at least neutralized enough to give Earth a fighting chance to heal. Sarah Bennett and Ryan Carter stood together near the edge of the water, watching the wreckage sink below the waves. Their bodies ached from days of relentless fighting, but their hearts were lighter than they had been in weeks. They didn't speak. Words weren't needed. The weight of what they had accomplished hung heavy between them, mixed with the bittersweet memory of those who hadn't made it this far. Jack's name lingered unspoken in the air. He wasn't there to see the victory he had fought so hard for, but his sacrifice echoed in every step they took toward freedom. Sarah clenched her fists tightly, vowing silently that his death wouldn't be forgotten. Back at the shelter, Emily Dawson sat in front of the transmitter, staring at the blinking light that had carried their desperate plea across the stars. It felt surreal now, like looking at a relic from another time. That tiny device had saved them all, bridging the gap between Earth and the interstellar coalition fleet. Without it, none of this would have been possible. Her mind wandered back to Jack. She could still hear his voice telling her to keep going, to never give up no matter how hopeless things seemed. His determination had inspired her, pushed her to keep working when she thought she couldn't go on. Now, standing on the brink of a new beginning, she promised herself she would honor his memory by helping rebuild the world he had given everything to protect. Captain Ilara Voss entered the room quietly, interrupting Emily's thoughts. "It's over," she said simply, her tone softer than usual. "The last of their forces are retreating. Earth is safe, for now." Emily nodded, though her expression remained somber. "What happens next?" Ilara sighed and leaned against the wall. "We'll stay here for a while, help you stabilize things. You've got a long road ahead of you, but you're not alone anymore. The Interstellar Coalition will support your recovery efforts." Emily looked up, surprised. "You mean you're not leaving right away?" "No," Ilara replied with a small smile. "You've earned our respect and our help. Rebuilding won't be easy, but we'll do what we can." For the first time in months, Emily felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, Earth could rise, from the ashes stronger than ever before. Days turned into weeks as the survivors began the painstaking process of rebuilding. The coalition provided advanced technology and resources, teaching humans how to use tools far beyond anything they'd known before. Cities slowly came back to life, their streets filled with people determined to start anew. The scars of war were still visible, in burned-out buildings, in the empty spaces where loved ones used to stand. But there was also a sense of renewal, a belief that tomorrow could be better than today. Sarah and Ryan threw themselves into the effort, channeling their grief into action. Sarah worked alongside coalition engineers, learning how to operate alien machinery and adapt it for human use. Her sharp mind and quick reflexes made her invaluable, earning her praise from both humans and aliens alike. Ryan, meanwhile, focused on repairing damaged infrastructure. His hands moved deftly over wires and circuits, breathing new life into old systems. At night, they often found themselves sitting together under the stars, talking about the future. "I think I want to open a repair shop," Ryan said one evening, his voice tinged with excitement. "Something simple, you know? A place where people can come to fix things instead of throwing them away." Sarah smiled. "That sounds perfect for you, and me. I think I'll stick with engineering. There's so much we can learn from the coalition's tech. Maybe one day we'll even build something completely new." Their dreams were modest, rooted in the reality of what they'd been through, but they were dreams nonetheless, a sign that hope still burned brightly within them. Emily became a key figure in the rebuilding process, using her knowledge of engineering to bridge the gap between human ingenuity and alien innovation. She collaborated closely with Captain Voss, sharing ideas and strategies for restoring Earth's ecosystems and advancing its technology. Together, they laid the foundation for a brighter future, one built on cooperation rather than fear. One day, while working on a project to restore power to a damaged hospital, Emily received a gift from Ilara, a data chip containing blueprints for advanced alien technology. "Use it wisely," Ilara told her. "You've earned your place among the stars." Emily accepted the chip with trembling hands, overwhelmed by the responsibility it represented. But she also felt a surge of pride. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. And she intended to make sure it stayed that way. Months later, the coalition fleet prepared to depart. Their mission was complete, and Earth was stable enough to continue on its own. As the ships gathered in the sky, ready to leave orbit, Captain Voss addressed the crowd gathered below. "You've shown incredible strength and courage," she said, her voice carrying over the assembled masses. "When others might have given up, you chose to fight. Because of that, you've earned not only our respect but also our friendship. Remember this moment, not as the end of a war, but as the beginning of a new chapter." Her words brought tears to many eyes, including Emily's. She watched as the ships ascended into the sky, disappearing into the vastness of space. Though part of her wished they could stay longer, she knew their departure marked a turning point. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. It had allies now, friends who believed in its potential. In the heart of New York City, a monument was erected to honor those who had fought and died during the invasion. At its center stood a statue of Jack Miller, rifle slung over his shoulder, gazing toward the heavens. Beneath it read an inscription, "They thought no one would come. Then Earth's fighters walked through fire and showed the universe that courage knows no bounds." Every day people stopped to pay their respects, leaving flowers or simply pausing to reflect. For Emily, Sarah, and Ryan, the monument served as a reminder of what they had lost and what they had gained. It symbolized resilience, unity, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. As the years passed, Earth flourished once more. Its cities were rebuilt, its skies cleared, and its people united. The scars of war remained, but they were tempered by hope and progress. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, proving that even the smallest spark could ignite a flame bright enough to light the darkness. And somewhere, in the quiet moments when the wind carried whispers of the past, Jack's voice echoed softly, "Keep going. Never stop fighting."